Good morning, Quad Cities. It is Wednesday, July 15th, and it is time to talk about some severe weather returning to the Quad Cities. I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzke. Thank you for joining me here on this live weather impact discussion. If you have questions regarding the severe storm threat as we go into tomorrow, you're in the perfect place. We're going to try and answer all of those as best as we can here. We've got our digital team hard at work fielding me some questions. I want to thank Alec for his work, and I also want to thank Brandy, our director this morning, for getting this stream up and going so that everything looks good. So how this works is it's very similar to Ask Andrew Live, except instead of taking like weather-related questions, we're going to be talking mainly about the severe weather threat coming in on our Monday here, or excuse me, on our Wednesday tomorrow. So if you have a question, you can text that to 309-304-0888. It's 309-304-0888, and one more time in the back, 309-304-0888. That's the best way to get your question here to me. So we have a weather impact alert in place for tomorrow. Let's get right into the details of when that's going to be specifically tomorrow, and also what threats the storms are likely going to bring. So that weather impact alert is currently going from 2 in the afternoon until 6 o'clock in the evening. There will likely need to be some wiggle room with this timing here, because all of this is dependent on a tiny little area of low pressure that's going to develop with a storm system that will develop way in the Dakotas late this evening. It's all going to be associated with a thunderstorm complex. And it all comes down to the timing of that complex itself in terms of when those storms are going to arrive tomorrow afternoon and how strong they will be. So 2 to 6 right now is the timing. Again, we may move that a little bit here and there in the next 24 hours, but we do know confidently what the threats are going to be, and that's going to involve strong winds, potentially up to 60 miles an hour. Also some isolated instances of some hail that could possibly be up to quarter size in size there. And also an isolated tornado or two. Can't rule that out. So the need will be, especially tomorrow, make sure you have your Storm Track 8 app loaded on your phone, ready to go. And then today and tomorrow is right where you're at right now on the 8+ app, watching our severe storm discussion here to kind of get yourself ready to go for what will potentially come our way. So the storms tonight, that are going to depend on what happens tomorrow. They're going to be firing way out here in Nebraska. And as that complex gets here tomorrow, it's going to be kind of in a decaying mode later in the morning. But the leftover remnants of that storm system will create a little mini area of low pressure that will then drive new scattered severe storm development as we go into tomorrow noon. And I want to emphasize the word scattered. This is not going to be widespread thunderstorms like what we saw on Friday. There are many, many differences between the two scenarios that we have and the two setups going. So this will be a scattered event. You can see there is a 2 out of 5 risk from the Storm Prediction Center, still ongoing here for the Quad Cities and areas to the east. This is also going to shift a little bit too, depending on the timing and when that little area of low pressure decides it's going to make its way through here. Right now, the timing looks pretty good that it's going to be tomorrow afternoon into the evening that will take place. Let's break down the individual zones here, the storm zones, starting with tornadoes for tomorrow. This is the lowest on the scale. It's a 1 out of 5, but you can see it does include that 2 out of 5 risk area that I just showed you, the red area. So there is an isolated brief spin-up tornado that will be possible as we go into tomorrow. So that is something we're going to be monitoring. Also, the wind threat is definitely a little more elevated than the tornado threat. This would be the most elevated threat for the storms tomorrow. It would be wind followed by an isolated tornado followed by an isolated hail that could potentially reach quarter size. So wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour, definitely possible if not likely for some of those storms as they work our way into the region heading into your Wednesday. We're going to get a new run of our in-house future track model during this discussion. It usually comes in at about 9:15. So I'm going to try and hold us to that. We'll check back in at this, but this is the morning run, which is showing a couple of late night showers tonight, perhaps a rumble of thunder. We get into tomorrow morning, complex of storms to the west is kind of decaying, but then the energy from that will start migrating its way eastward as we go into the afternoon. Notice ahead of this that we have a lot of clearing going on. We have a lot of sunshine, so that will heat up the atmosphere. It will destabilize things, and it will likely build enough storm energy that this line to the west of us is going to re-energize itself as it moves to the east here. So one, notice the coverage, we have huge gaps here. So this means scattered. We're not seeing a solid line move in the way things look right now. And again, scattered, meaning not everyone's going to see these. But you can see by 1:30, some of these storms, especially to the north here, are looking a little more feisty in nature. They've kind of got that darker red appearance, indicating some stronger activity. As we go deeper into the afternoon, into the early evening, you can see that case, the coverage, it still remains scattered. We're not seeing a lot of coverage on this. And then once we get to the late evening and into the overnight hours, things will begin to quiet down. So unlike the last storm system, this is not going to have a ton of storm energy to work with over a widespread area. Instead, the storm energy at the higher levels is going to be more concentrated in scattered areas. And you can see that here when you look at the storm energy map as we go into tomorrow afternoon. We're not seeing the whole area covered in that dark red or that dark maroon color indicating high to extreme amounts of energy. We're only seeing that kind of in scattered areas. So it's not going to be a widespread event like we had last time. So I want to give you kind of the bottom line here, and then I'll take some questions and we'll kind of poke around at some more data. So the bottom line is this is not going to be a repeat of last Friday in terms of the following: the flooding threat. These storms are going to be moving, and they will be moving much more quickly than the storms that we had last Friday. They're also not going to be going over the same areas over and over and over again. We're not going to be seeing repeated rounds of storms heading into tomorrow. That's the other key difference. Also, like I mentioned before, the storm coverage is not going to be widespread. This is going to be scattered coverage. So not everyone is going to see these, hence also decreasing the flood threat as well. Another thing to consider, this is also going to be a quick moving storm system. Like I said before, we're not repeating the storms over the same areas, and the coverage is expected to remain scattered. So those are the key elements I want folks to remember. I know a lot of us may have anxiety from what happened on last Friday. Yes, that was a very, very high impact event that moved through on Friday. But at this time, I do not expect a repeat as we go into tomorrow. This is not going to be the same setup. It's not going to be the same amount of moisture, nor is it going to be the same ingredients that are going to be pushing through. So I'm also going to take you on another run solution here, because we can do this on the fly when we're doing the A+ app here. So what I'm going to show you is what we call our rapid refresh model. And this is going to be a different take on what could potentially happen tomorrow too. What I showed you at first there was our in-house model. Now we're going to go into our rapid refresh model. And I'll start showing you some of the data here in terms of what may come our way as we go into tomorrow. So you can see very similar timing, 2 to about 6 o'clock. This one has a little bit better coverage of the thunderstorms, but still emphasizing that this is likely going to be a broken line as it comes through. So we have an agreement on not only the timing, but we also have some really solid agreement on the coverage of these storms too. So this is 1:30 going into 2 o'clock. You can see, yep, a little broken line trying to come through here during that time. It'll go east of the Mississippi River, kind of fluctuate in intensity here and there, but still the same overall idea. By 3 o'clock, we've got some scattered showers and some storms moving through. There will be a cold front that comes through tomorrow evening, but it looks like that is going to be a bigger show for areas south of us. So what we're going to be getting is the interaction of that small little storm system coming in from the west. That'll be created by those thunderstorms late tonight in Nebraska. That will then work its way in here as we go into the afternoon. So it's nice to see we have some good agreement on this. That's why we have some fairly high confidence as to what's going to go down here for tomorrow, and that it's going to be scattered. It's not going to be extremely heavy like what we saw on Friday, and we're not going to likely see the flooding that we saw on Friday either. So I'm going to put that back to our in-house run. I'm going to put that to bed here for a second, because again, we're going to get a brand new run of this model, our in-house model, likely in the next 5 to 6 minutes or so, and we'll be able to plot that for you live here on this stream. But I'll see what we got for questions here this morning in terms of what's going to happen tomorrow. See if there's any of the we can answer for you here. Good morning, Linnell. I'm giving Peter the morning off because he's in for the chief this evening. James Zahara is off this evening, so I want to give Peter some rest, some well-deserved rest. Linnell says it's the Elizabeth Fair Yes, that's really cool. I'm sorry, the Beast is already spoken for this weekend. We're going to be at the Prairie Chicken Festival in Kewanee on Saturday. And looks like it's going to be a little wet there too. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, one of these years we're going to have to get that thing up to Elizabeth. I know it's quite the drive, but we'll definitely have to make sure we can get that done. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, she got another question about the Joe Daviess County Fair. The 4-H fair is also this week, starting today through Thursday. It's going to get hot. It's going to get humid at times, especially before this storm system arrives tomorrow. And honestly, the later half of the week is actually looking pretty good. We're actually going to see some cool air come in behind this system. Highs on Thursday are only going to be in the 70s, and then when we get to Friday, we're only going to have a high of around 80 degrees. So there's going to be a really nice cool down with this storm system itself. But enjoy it because it looks like the heat and humidity are going to return next week. And in fact, as I talked about this morning, I think we're going to need some heat advisories for a few days next week as the 90s come back, along with a lot of humidity. That means heat index values likely pushing past 100 degrees by the middle part of next week. So more heat is on the way. We are certainly not done with that quite yet. I think the animals will be okay though, Linnell. Usually the caretakers of the animals, they got the fans going, they've got the water going. Some of them even bring some ice, so I think they're going to be okay there. Matthew's wondering, could it possibly be how Friday was? How would it look around 5 o'clock? Do we have enough instability and shear? We definitely have some instability for some isolated tornadoes and a little bit of shear, but we have nowhere near the shear we had last Friday. So this event is not as intense as what we saw last Friday in terms of the flood threat, the wind threat, and the tornado threat. It's not zero, but it's not as high as what we saw on Friday. Billy from Clinton, our good friend there, is wondering how Invest 93, which if you're curious what that is, there's an area of disturbed weather off the coast of Florida that could potentially turn into something tropical in the days ahead. He's wondering as well if it's going to have any impact on this event and anything in the near future, it sounds like. Not going to have an impact on this event. However, we are going to be watching its impacts to our weather next week, because what it could do, depending on how strong that storm gets, is it could actually intensify the heat dome to our southwest. And that would mean either we're going to see more heat than what's currently forecast, or we're going to see more moisture come in that could fuel more active showers and thunderstorms. The pattern next week looks quite similar to something that we would see that would bring a significant wind event through the region. It's a favorable setup for strong clusters of storms. So we're going to be tracking storms, I think, about every day next week, the way the pattern looks. I know when we get closer, we're going to be able to kind of sift out some dry hours, but as of right now, next week looks very, very active around here. Great question, Billy. Thank you. Matthew's also wondering, is there going to be a watch issued tomorrow? Well, there might be. It's hard to tell this far in advance. You kind of have to wait and see what the radar looks like before you can start issuing watches, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get some kind of a watch issued for parts of the area as we go into tomorrow afternoon. I don't think it's going to cover the whole region, but certainly parts of the area could see some kind of a watch tomorrow. He's also wondering if we could have discrete cells that could fire up, or could any storm pop up, could it turn into a discrete cell? Yes, Matthew, because some of these are going to be more scattered in nature tomorrow, there is the ability or the chance that one or two of those could remain on its own. And what he's saying about discrete is anytime you have a discrete thunderstorm that has its own environment to work with, those are the ones that could get not only stronger, but could also produce that isolated tornado threat too tomorrow. So we're going to be watching that very carefully. That is a possibility as we get into tomorrow. Michelle is wondering about the cap for tomorrow. We don't think that's going to be too much of an issue as of right now. It will hinder more widespread storm development, but we are expecting, as the front moves in and that disturbance moves in, that we are going to see some scattered storms develop. But the setup tomorrow not favoring a strong cap that would suppress storm development completely. It's a very good question. We have Ellie from Galva. Could this change from scattered storms to more of a consistent storm pattern considering tomorrow's heat? We don't anticipate that right now. Typically with these little, what we call MCVs coming in, or these little low pressures coming in, they don't tend to have widespread showers and thunderstorms with them. They tend to keep things more scattered. So we're going to keep the wording as scattered for tomorrow. I don't see too much that could change that, especially given the dynamics that this storm system will and will not have versus the event we had on Friday. We have Marcus from Moline. Good morning, Marcus. Let's see. The question is, what is the impact if you're traveling tomorrow as the storms come in? Is it going to be safe to travel? Yes, it will be, because again, these are going to be very scattered in nature. We're not expecting a big solid line like we had last week. So I think travel is going to be okay. You're going to run into some really heavy rain at times, perhaps some small hail, quarter size at most, if a storm can take advantage of the environment. But for the most part, this is going to be scattered, and I don't think there's going to be a huge impact in terms of travel. And then Michelle had asked about the cap, and we talked about that earlier. I don't see the cap being much of a factor in this setup that we've got coming in for tomorrow. A couple more questions we have room for, so go ahead and get those in. I'm going to pop Future Track back up really quickly and see if we got the new model run. Again, we're expecting that any minute here, which is why I love doing the 9 o'clock thing, because then we can see the new model run and we can see what's changed, what's remained the same. This looks about the same from the one this morning, so I don't see too much change with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually zoom this out so I can show you kind of how all of this is going to set itself up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us out a little bit further here, and what we're going to do is we're going to show kind of some of these features that are going to be coming into place. So what we're going to be tracking as we go into tonight is that complex of thunderstorms that you're seeing in northern parts of Nebraska. So what those storms will do as they build upward late tonight and into tomorrow morning is they will send out a little mini area of low pressure. And that little mini area of low pressure by tomorrow morning is going to be sitting right near Omaha. You can see kind of the orientation of the radar presentation here. I'm actually going to make a line here, and there you see where the low is going to be. It's going to be right about there. Is where our low pressure is going to be. So what that thing is going to do is it's going to head east, and then it's going to run into all of this unstable air, and it's going to redevelop those new thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon. So there you see the morning activity kind of fading away, not really making it here, but the energy as that low pressure system moves in, that's going to spawn the new scattered storms that we get Wednesday afternoon. And again, some of those could be on the strong to severe side. And then it looks like the more robust storm activity after that into Wednesday night, Thursday morning is going to take place to the south of us. But look at all the clouds left behind this storm system. That's why Thursday is going to be so cool. We're not really expecting a lot in the way of cloud cover, or excuse me, in sunshine as we go into our Thursday. So that's going to keep things much cooler. So we still are on the old run right now. We have not gotten the new run in yet. Again, it comes in any minute now. We'll be able to get the new one, and we'll be able to see exactly what it looks like. In fact, I think we did just get it in while we were working there. So let's see if there's any changes. Let's go right back in here and see if there's anything different. Probably not, because again, it's been fairly consistent most of the morning. Yeah, a couple little pop-up showers late tonight. Tomorrow morning, that complex to the west kind of dies off. Here comes the energy from that. Okay, so now you see, yeah, still some scattered coverage. That's getting a little bit closer. Again, this is the new run. We just got it in. So I'm analyzing this with you live as you're watching us here on the stream. So same idea, scattered coverage in the Quad Cities, about 1:30. So timing's about an hour earlier, but still pretty consistent. And then moving that off to the east, scattered. What I am noticing, though, with the newer run here, too, is we're getting a little bit more solidification of these Boeing signatures. Let me pop this off really quick, and I'll pull this back up so I can get my pointer back on the screen here for you. And I'll show you what I mean about these Boeing signatures. So let's jump this way up here. Let's get me a pause point so I can actually use the pointer. So notice here, you kind of get in this line segment, but there's a couple of these that are kind of bowing forward a little bit. That is the damaging wind threat for tomorrow. There is going to be quite a bit of moisture in the air, so these storms will do what we call water loading or precip loading, meaning they're going to have some heavy rainfall. Briefly, I want to remind you, they're going to be moving tomorrow. They're not going to be sitting over an area all too long. But with all this moisture in the air, they're going to be loaded with that. And as that rain falls down, it can drag some pretty strong winds around with it too. So that's what I mean about these kind of little bowing features here. And you're seeing that here on the run with these scattered storms. So something to keep an eye on, I think, for tomorrow afternoon for sure. Again, the wind threat is going to be the highest out of all of the threats. Tornado threat would be isolated. So wind is going to be our primary concern as we go into tomorrow. So we have a couple of more questions pop into the chat here. Fred in Rock Island was asking, what is the most likely time for severe weather to hit the Quad Cities? I think for the metro tomorrow, we're talking about anywhere between 2 and 4 o'clock, though again, we may shift that timing a little bit here. Depending on what the radar looks like as we go into the afternoon. I'm going with 2 to 6 for the whole region. Again, we cover areas west of the Quad Cities all the way to Interstate 39. So we have a big time frame on this. But Metro Quad Cities, I think you're closer to 2 to 4 o'clock here for the impacts of those storms. We also have, let's see, I have no idea where the beast is going to be tomorrow, Matthew. I have to remember we have some folks on vacation, so we're going to have to plan ahead for that. I'm not really sure where that is going to be as we go into tomorrow. Sarah from Davenport asking, could we see isolated tornadoes, or is this mainly a wind and hail day? There is an isolated tornado threat with this tomorrow. Remind you here, we are in the tornado zone tomorrow. It's a 1 out of 5, so it's the lowest for the tornadoes, but it does include us here in the Quad Cities and all of our hometowns. And the reason being is when you get these little low pressure systems that move through, they already have some spin associated with them. So if a storm can get going and utilize some of that spin and stay on its own, you could get that isolated tornado threat by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon. So that's another thing we're going to be keeping a very, very close eye on as we go into that region. Jeff in Galesburg is asking, what parts of the region are most at risk? North of I-80, south of I-80, or everyone? This is going to be everyone, especially on the Illinois side of the river. You can notice how sharp the cutoff is for the level 2 risk. It's just west of the river. But I have a feeling I think it's Illinois side, especially given the speed of that storm system coming in with the data this morning. It's going to be Illinois hometowns that will be most impacted, and it's going to be both sides of the interstate. No, it doesn't matter if you're north or south. It's just going to be scattered. So not everyone is going to see it, but everyone does have the same threat. It's not limited to just north or south of the interstate. I will say, though, if you're on the Iowa side of the Mississippi River, I think your threat is a little bit lower. So that is some good news. I think most of this is going to be an Illinois threat as we go into tomorrow afternoon. I'll give everyone just a few more minutes to get any last-minute questions in, and then I'll let you guys go ahead and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday afternoon. I keep thinking today's Wednesday. Not yet. We got one more day to get to Wednesday and all that good stuff. We're almost to hump day, just about there. But thanks for tuning into the live stream. Again, if you have another question, you can go ahead and throw it in there. I'm going to give you a couple of more minutes. We'll end things at about 25 minutes after the top of the hour, and I want to thank you for joining me here. Just a reminder of the bottom line for those folks that are just joining us right now, to give you a key breakdown in the differences here between what we're expecting tomorrow and what we saw last Friday. This is everything you need to know right here. It's not going to be a repeat. I want to say that over and over again. It's not going to be a repeat of what we saw on Friday. This is not going to be the same in terms of the flood threat, in terms of the storm coverage. We're not talking about repeating storms moving over the same areas again and again. These storms will actually be moving at a good clip, likely 40 to 50 miles an hour. The storms that we dealt with on Friday were only moving at 30 to 35 miles an hour. So they were staying over areas longer, leading to all that flooding. Coverage is again remaining scattered, so we're not expecting widespread storms with these coming in tomorrow. So lots and lots of differences between what we saw here on Friday and what's going to be coming in here tomorrow. Not the same event, thankfully, because we do not need another event like we had on Friday. I hope it's a long time before we have to start talking about that again. But I do want to remind you, too, that this is a scenario now that we're going to have to watch in the next few weeks, that the ground is full of water. We've had a lot of it lately, a lot of rain, and any additional heavy rainfall could certainly lead to not only more flooding, but also some river flooding. The good news is, as it stands right now, we're not expecting flooding on the Mississippi River. It will not even break flood stage. It's going to be well below that. Same thing with the Rock River. The only local river here that's experiencing flooding, at least one of the bigger ones, is the Wapsie, and that's to be expected. It gets into minor flood stage here today through tomorrow, and then it will level itself back out. But the other rivers are not expected to be in terms of any major flooding or anything like that, thankfully. It really was in our favor that before this active pattern kicked in, the river levels were already really low to begin with, especially the Rock River. The Mississippi River had slowly been building its way up, as I've been showing you the last couple of weeks, but even then it's still not to be too concerned with, at least right now. We'll see how this pattern shakes out. But for now, I want to thank you guys for joining me here on the stream. I'm sure we'll have another one tomorrow. In fact, I know we will, because tomorrow's Wednesday and it's Ask Andrew Live at 9 o'clock. So join me for that one, 9 o'clock sharp. We'll see what special guest I can bring with me tomorrow. I have a feeling it might be Morgan. We'll see. We'll continue tracking this threat for tomorrow. I'll see you a little later this morning on GMQC at 11. Have a great Tuesday.